Welcome to Live Parkinson's, Live an Exceptional Life. I'm your host, Chris Custenbotter, and I've been living an exceptional life with Parkinson's for the past 15 years. The mission of this podcast is to help as many people as possible living with Parkinson's to lead a great quality of life. Now, if you're living with Parkinson's, you know that the brain fog and physical stiffness aren't just symptoms, they're a daily battle. But what if that battle is actually being fought in your digestive tract? Today, we're going to be talking about the secret messengers of the Parkinson's world, short-chain fatty acids, or SCFAs for short. New clinical research, including a landmark 2024 study, shows that these tiny molecules are the key to turning down the volume on brain inflammation. So if you've been looking for a way to actually influence the environment of your brain through your dinner plate, you can't afford to miss this episode. So before we dive in and get too deep into it, I want to give you a roadmap of what we'll be covering. We'll lead it off with the gut-brain highway and look at why the gut is often called the second brain in Parkinson's. And we'll talk about short-chain fatty acids and look at their role as messengers produced by gut bacteria. Then we'll move into the science of short-chain fatty acids and how they affect neuroinflammation. Then we'll give you actionable strategies that you can use in your daily eating, including the fiber prebiotic strategy and the 3-gram rule. Then we'll finish with some additional takeaways that you can use in your daily life. All right, now I've talked about the gut-brain axis on several episodes, but if you're new or like me need a refresher, let's define what the gut-brain axis is and why it's important in Parkinson's disease. Think of your gut and your brain as two close friends who are constantly texting each other. Your brain sends messages that control digestion, movement of food, and even how hungry you feel. Your gut sends messages back that influence mood, inflammation, energy, and importantly, brain health. Now, this two-way communication between the brain and the gut happens through the vagus nerve, which is kind of like a high-speed fiber optic cable between your gut and your brain. Now, the immune system, which reacts to what's happening in your gut, and gut bacteria, trillions, yes, I said trillions, of tiny organisms that produce chemicals that your brain uses. Now, when your gut is healthy, the messages it sends are calm, balanced, and supportive. But when your gut is inflamed or out of balance, the messages can become noisy, stressful, and disruptive. Okay, so why does this matter in Parkinson's? Well, here's the part that surprises many people. For a large number of people with Parkinson's, the earliest changes may begin in the gut years before motor symptoms appear. Researchers have found many people with Parkinson's have gut inflammation long before diagnosis. Now, the gut lining can become leaky, causing what they call leaky gut, also known as dysbiosis, allowing unwanted substances to enter the bloodstream. Now, certain bacteria are more common in Parkinson's, while others, the helpful ones, are reduced. Now, these changes can influence inflammation, movement, symptoms, mood, and even medication absorption. So when we talk about the gut-brain axis, we're not talking about a side issue. We're talking about a core part of Parkinson's. So now that we understand the gut-brain axis, let's look at the actual fuel that makes this axis work: short-chain fatty acids. So think of your gut as a massive fermentation vat, like when they're brewing beer or making sauerkraut or kimchi. When you eat fiber, the stuff your body can't digest on its own, your gut bacteria go to work. As they eat the fiber, they poop out a byproduct, and that byproduct is short-chain fatty acids. Now, there are 3 pillars to the short-chain fatty acids, or SCFAs: acetate, propionate, and butyrate, which is the star of the show. So think of your gut bacteria as a sophisticated chemical factory. When you feed that factory fiber, it produces 3 specific medicinal molecules called SCFAs. The first one is acetate, and that's the messenger. This is the most abundant short-chain fatty acid, and it travels through the blood and helps regulate your metabolism and your appetite. Now, in the brain, it plays a key role in keeping the blood-brain barrier tight. acting like a security fence that prevents toxins from entering your central nervous system. Next is propionate, the shield. This is primarily processed in the liver, but has a massive systemic effect. It helps reduce oxidative stress, the internal rusting of cells, and has been shown to protect the nerves in the peripheral nervous system, which is where Parkinson's symptoms actually begin. And then next, we have butyrate, the fire extinguisher. Now, this is the holy grail for Parkinson's research. Butyrate is the primary energy source for cells living in your gut, but its real magic happens in the brain. It acts as a powerful anti-inflammatory that switches off the overactive immune cells, which are called microglia, that attack dopamine-producing neurons. So, if we want to have more of those fire extinguishers, or the butyrate, and shields, the propionate, we feed our gut the right raw materials, which are high-fiber foods. Now, you feed your gut bacteria high-fiber foods, and your body handles the pharmacy work. So, you aren't just eating, you're manufacturing your own brain medicine. So, let's look at these short-chain fatty acids cross the blood-brain barrier to modulate the microglia, the brain's immune cells that can become overactive and damage dopamine. Now, inside your brain live special immune cells called the microglia. Think of them as your brain's gardeners. When things are healthy, microglia prune away damaged cells and keep the brain clean. But when they get overstimulated, which can happen in Parkinson's, they become overactive, like gardeners who begin ripping out the flowers along with the weeds. Now, this overactivity contributes to neuroinflammation, which can worsen symptoms and accelerate the loss of dopamine-producing neurons. So, the big question is, can anything calm these microglia down? And that's where short-chain fatty acids come in. The short-chain fatty acids that we discussed, acetate, propionate, and butyrate, are produced when your gut bacteria digest fiber from foods like vegetables, berries, beans, nuts, and whole grains. Now, here's the remarkable part about SCFAs. They're absorbed through the gut wall and into the bloodstream. Because they're so small, they can cross the blood-brain barrier, which is the brain's protective filter. Now, once they get inside the brain, they interact directly with microglia. They send a calm down signal that reduces inflammation and helps protect your dopamine-producing neurons. It's kind of like sending a soothing text message to the brain. Immune system, relax. You don't need to overreact. There was a 2024 review titled Gut Microbiota, Brain Axis, Implications for Neurodegenerative Diseases that was published in Frontiers in Neuroanatomy in February of 2025. Now, in this study, researchers looked at the entire gut microbiota, brain axis, and Parkinson's. And one of the key findings was this. People with Parkinson's often have lower levels of short-chain fatty acids. And when short-chain fatty acids are depleted, the brain shows more alpha-synuclein aggregation, the protein that clumps in Parkinson's. And less SCFAs equals more inflammation and more protein folding. So, in simple terms, because I'm a simple person, when the gut isn't producing enough short-chain fatty acids, the brain becomes more vulnerable. Now, this study helped confirm that gut health isn't just a side issue. It's deeply connected to the biology of Parkinson's. Now, in another study, Beauty and the Beast, the complex role of butyrate in Parkinson's disease that was published in Frontiers in Pharmacology in 2024, looked specifically at butyrate, one of the most powerful SCFAs. Now, in animal models of Parkinson's, they found butyrate protected dopamine-producing neurons. It reduced microglial overactivation, it improved motor function in the animals, and it strengthened the gut barrier, reduced inflammation traveling to the brain. Now, this is one of the clearest demonstrations that short-chain fatty acids don't just support gut health, they have direct neuroprotective effects. So let's put it all together. Here's the big picture in everyday language. Your gut bacteria make short-chain fatty acids when you eat fiber. And short-chain fatty acids travel through your bloodstream and enter your brain. And once there, they help the microglia behave normally instead of becoming overactive. This reduces inflammation and may protect dopamine-producing neurons. Now, when SCFAs are low, which is common in Parkinson's, inflammation rises and harmful proteins accumulate more easily. So this means your gut isn't digesting food. It's actually influencing the health of your brain. All right, now that we've talked about what short-chain fatty acids are and how they actually cross into the brain to calm microglia, let's bring the science home. Because the most exciting part of this research is that you can influence your short-chain fatty acid levels every single day through the foods that you eat. Now, we just walked through two powerful studies. The gut microbiota brain axis study, showing that when short-chain fatty acids are low in the brain, they become more vulnerable to inflammation and alpha-synuclein buildup. And the Beauty and the Beast study, showing that butyrate, one of the key short-chain fatty acids, can actually protect dopamine-producing neurons in animal models. So the next natural question is, how do we help our gut make more of these protective molecules? And the answer is, believe it or not, is surprisingly simple. Fiber. Not the fiber supplement kind, the real whole food kind that your gut bacteria love to ferment. Now, when you feed your gut bacteria the right foods, they turn the fiber into short-chain fatty acids, and those short-chain fatty acids travel through your bloodstream, cross into your brain, and help with inflammation. So, let's talk about foods that do this best. Think of these foods as short-chain fatty acid builders. They're rich in prebiotic fibers, the kind your bacteria ferment into butyrate, acetate, and propionate. Now, first up, prebiotic vegetables. Now, these are the heavy hitters. Foods like onions, garlic, leeks, asparagus, and artichokes. They're packed with inulin, which is one of the most powerful prebiotic fibers we know of. Now, when your gut bacteria ferment inulin, they produce a surge of short-chain fatty acids. Even adding a little garlic or onion to your meals can make a difference. All right, next up is fruits that feed your microbiome. Berries, apples, and even slightly green bananas are fantastic for short-chain fatty acid production. Berries have polyphenols, plant compounds that help good bacteria thrive. Apples bring pectin, which boosts butyrate, and green bananas contain resistant starch, a superstar for feeding butyrate-producing bacteria. All right, next is whole grains and resistant starch. Foods like oats, barley, quinoa, and cooked and cooled potatoes or rice are rich in fibers that your gut bacteria love. Resistant starch is especially powerful. It's like slow-release fuel for short-chain fatty acid production, and you can get that from cooled potatoes, cooked potatoes, as well as rice. Next up is legumes. Beans and lentils are some of the most effective short-chain fatty acid boosting foods on the planet. Even a half-cup serving can meaningfully increase butyrate production, microbial diversity, and help your gut produce more short-chain fatty acids over time. And then finally, fermented foods. Now, these don't make short-chain fatty acids directly, but they help the bacteria that do. Foods like yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, and tempeh support healthier, more balanced microbiome, which means more short-chain fatty acids. So, how do we make this part of our daily life? Well, you don't need a perfect diet. You don't need to overhaul your life. You just need to feed your gut a little better and a little more often. So, here are some simple ways to start. Add some berries or sliced apples to breakfast. Throw some onions, garlic, or leeks into whatever you're cooking. Swap rice for quinoa or barley once a week. Or you can add a spoonful of chia or flax seeds to your oatmeal or yogurt. Have beans and lentils once or twice a week. And you can put them in soups, chili, or even hummus counts as well. Try a small serving of sauerkraut or kefir a few times a week. Me, I love sauerkraut. Every time you do this, you're helping your gut bacteria produce more short-chain fatty acids and giving your brain more molecules that help calm inflammation and support healthier microglia. Now, this is one of the most empowering parts of the gut-brain story. Your daily choices can shift your biology in a direction that supports your brain. There was a 2022 study in the journal Nutrients that showed high fiber diets in PD patients didn't just help them with constipation, but actually improved motor symptoms over time because this reduced systemic inflammation. So here's the takeaway for the week: the 5-gram jump. Don't overhaul your diet overnight or your gut's going to rebel and you're going to get bloating and gas. Just aim to add 5 grams of prebiotic fiber to your day. Now, maybe that's an extra leek in your soup or a tablespoon of ground flaxseed in your oatmeal. You're literally feeding the factory that manufactures your brain's best defense. Now, as we know, Parkinson's can feel unpredictable, but your gut is one area where you have real influence. So by feeding your biome the right foods, you're not just supporting digestion, you're supporting your brain's immune system, your inflammation levels, and your long-term resilience. So, small steps, real science, and that's going to add up to daily wins. Now, if you found this episode helpful, share it with others who can benefit. Also, please visit liveparkinsons.com and subscribe to the free monthly newsletter and take advantage of some of the other valuable free resources like the 9 balance exercises to help improve balance. And then there's also helpful articles on there as well. So until next time, stay healthy, stay strong, get your fiber, and live your best life with Parkinson's. Thanks, and we'll see you soon.